this. I'm very excited about this. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. Since 2009, we said that perhaps this will become a ritual, that it will come every year from this time of the year, and it is happening. You are part of the ritual that in Esteva we celebrate your presence. Yes. And you have here, we have 6 years of people coming, and they are with us in this room, sharing with us. Something that we always start, well, first, this is not a lecture, please. This is a conversation. You can interrupt me at any time. First of all, because sometimes my Spanish is impossible to follow, and then sometimes you cannot follow my words, and then you want me to repeat to understand what I'm saying. Sometimes it is the ideas that is difficult to follow. Yeah. Then you can also interrupt me because you cannot follow one specific idea. And also, part of the tradition is that we try to accommodate to your questions, your concerns, your ideas. Perhaps you have some burning questions about Mexico, about the situation, about us, about Venezuela, some of the kind of things that you would like to discuss today.
Okay. So if anyone has something you'd like to just offer, it's a question or a burning issue.
I have a question for you. So with the water shortage and also the cleanliness of water and being sanitary for everyone to drink, and everyone's requiring a lot of bottled water, and it's becoming a problem for the environment. How has Mexico or Oaxaca troubleshooted that?
That's a beautiful question. Sorry, let me see, I forgot to cancel.
Sure.
This thing.
Because you would think, I guess from my Western perspective, I would think that maybe like a purification system would be in order, or that would improve it, and then you'd have less waste and product with the plastics and so forth. But I'm just wondering how your perspective on it and how they would.
Well, I am sure that you have been told that you cannot drink tap water. That is horrible. It is highly contaminated. This has been for many, many years. There is a very serious problem with water in the Central Valleys. Mm-hmm. They are trying to bring water from a dam that is absolutely stupid. It has no reason to be. It will create a lot of environmental damage. Mm-hmm. It is a very good example of a terrible incompetence and corruption and all the horrible things that you can say about the government. But that is an opportunity to have a different story. Something like 15 years ago, a group of people, after a long struggle with the government and with everyone, we created a very special body that is called Foro Oaxaqueño del Agua. It's the Oaxaca Water Forum. And then we succeeded against the lawyers to create one special charter for this forum that includes all the faculties of the 3 levels of government, private companies of very different kinds, the society, the communities, everyone is involved in this forum with the theme of water, what to do with the water. Just to give you an idea of that long story, but it is clear illustration of what we want to share with you. The first day, a very high officer of the federal institution about water came with us. He said, I am very happy, I congratulate you, this is a great idea. Yes, the water is an affair for everyone. It's not just the government, it's just not the society. All of us need to do something about the water. And of course, the best way to care for the water, because now we have scarcity of water, is to put to the water a good price. If we fix a good price, then the people will take care of the water, and then we will solve the problem of scarcity. And the conversation continues a little, and then one guy raised the hand and said, sir, with all due respect, the problem is that water is sacred. And then we cannot treat water as a commodity, putting a price on water. And then this guy from the federal government said, oh, God, again, please actualize yourself. We are living in the 21st century. You don't want us to go back to the Stone Age? It was sacred, but we all are commodities. You are a commodity, I am a commodity, we all are commodities. And of course, water is a commodity. We need to treat it as what it is in the 21st century, not in the past, not going back in history, etc., etc. We continue the discussion. Of course, the guy of the company producing that kind of water was, of course, celebrating the idea of putting price and handling all these things. And then another guy raised his hand and said, well, I have heard also that water is a human right, a universal human right. And then what you are saying is that the people that don't have some money will die of thirst. Oh God, again, these kind of stupid things. Of course, we will have some specific programs to deal with those people that cannot pay the water, but the water, etc., etc. 15 years later, of very, very intense discussion and different forms of struggle, we produced a beautiful document, a magnificent document, that is called a common plan for the commons. That is all the sectors of the society and the government in Oaxaca are together to deal with this common thing of the water. And then, yes, we have magnificent ideas. I can tell you that the people for the communities are doing, it's really fantastic. There is one area in the city of Oaxaca where they produce a lot of vegetables for the city of Oaxaca. And very close to them, a few kilometers ahead, there is a mining company, of course a Canadian mining company, and they are taking all the water from the aquifers. And then these people were suffering because of this. They started to fight against the mining company, against the concession, etc. But at the same time, they started to do something about the water. And for example, they organized some very profound holes to nourish the aquifers with water. Because you have the rain, and then the rain goes, the water goes, and then they put the rain inside the aquifer. Again, to make that beautiful, long story short, the aquifer raised 7 meters in the last 4 years. Meaning they are really replenishing the aquifers in spite of the mining company. Yes, we are still fighting against the guys that want to make the dam. We have this, how do you call them? Cuenca is the basin. This is the Cuenca of Rio Coyac and Rio Salado. It's a whole big area. And then our plan is for the whole area. This is one way of saying, we want to say this is the kind of life that we want in this basin. You cannot bring here a plant to produce automobiles that consume 400,000 liters per unit. Then you cannot produce some things. You cannot live in a certain way in this area. And there are many things. We have more than enough water for everyone to have a very, very good amount of water in the city of Oaxaca. Yes, the people are suffering a lot here. 4 months of the year, the scarcity is terrible, but it is because of incompetence and specific interests that are preventing the possibility. In spite of the agreements, the signed agreements, the government and the companies are trying to violate the agreements, how to circumvent them, how to avoid the regulations that they agreed at one point as the proper path to. Yes, it is a struggle. It's a very serious struggle. We presented one juridical procedure against the federal institution about water because what they were doing in an area, we won. They presented an appeal, we won again. We are in the process. We are using juridical tools, so you are using basically the activities of the people. We are believing in the organization of the people at the grassroots, really trying to solve all our water problems.
And with that water, can you purify it so it's not... So what I'm thinking of is like all the waste with this, because this is plastic, it never breaks down, it destroys the environment. So can you purify the water that you guys get from the dams and the reservoirs?
Of course, the question is how you purify them.
Yeah.
Of course, there are industrial tools that are produced with a lot of water and a lot of energy. Then not only in Tierra, but one of our activities, we work with the people in the communities, and we produce some filters to purify the water of different kinds, depending on the level of contamination of the water. And they are very simple filters. Some of them use carbon, and some of them use other materials to purify the water. Yes, we can purify the water.
Thank you.
Can I ask, along with this, and the amount of grassroots work that's being done in your organizations to speak towards the rights of the people, how many people is it taking to accomplish these goals and to make forward movement? What is the masses required that you're having to work with to put this forward?
Very good question. Stimulating, very good conversation. She's a teacher. But there is a problem of changing the mood of our attitudes and our attitude about what to do and what not to do. To say this in a very provocative way, we are now convinced that the future has no future, that we need to stop hiding our lives from the future, any kind of future. That all the time we have been educated of not being here because we are in a direction to achieve something that is in the future. The people, when the children don't have clear goals when they are 12 years old, they don't call the drink because he does not have the proper goals to do in life. Well, that is, we think that it is pathological. We think that we need to concentrate. We know nothing about the future except that it does not exist, and we don't know if it will exist for us. Wendell Berry, that is one of our sources of inspiration, one of your friends and very close friends. He is very close to Wendell Berry in Kentucky. He says that to think about the future is to lose your time. That it is better to accept the idea of being surprised by the future, but the future will always surprise you. That you can find full libraries dedicated to something about which no one knows anything. No one knows anything about the future. And you have books and books and books about the future, how to prepare yourself for the future, etc. All this is to say that we are concentrated in the present. It's not the moment, it's not the instant. The future becomes real when it is already past. We are not interested in that instant. We're interested in the present, in the present that can be not the instant, not one day, but something like this time, our time, to do something right today and to solve our problems today. We are not trying to go to another promised land. We have heard for so many years different kind of promised lands from the left, from the right, different kinds of revolution, different kinds of things that will happen in the future. And then for the time being, you need to suffer, but in the future you will get fantastic kind of things. Through development, through progress, through imitating other countries, other ways of life, you will have a better future. Then we want a better present. Then first we are concentrated not in going forward, not in going backward, staying here and living a decent life today, here. This is our main effort. I think that the majority of the people in Oaxaca and the majority of the people in Mexico, and perhaps the majority of people on earth, are today very discontented with what is happening. They are not happy with the situation. They are resisting, they are opposed, some of them are desperate, some of them are expressing their anger in different ways. But more and more people are trying to do something, and to do something now. Because in a very real sense, for the majority of people in Oaxaca, Mexico, and the world, You cannot wait, because if you wait, you die. For many of us, this is a struggle for survival. We need to really struggle for every kind of things that we need to live. Starting, perhaps the best example for us is food. We cannot live without eating. Well, we know very well there is a beautiful poem by Eduardo Galeano, the Uruguayan poet. Sorry, you have heard this 20 times.
It's working. It's good.
And you also think. Eduardo Galeano said recently, in these times of global fear, there are some people afraid of hunger. And of course, 1 billion people are going today to bed with an empty stomach. Hunger is around us. It's in the US, it's in Mexico, everywhere. Hunger is again with us. Then are some people afraid of hunger. But the rest of us are afraid of eating. Because we know what they are putting in our place. We know that all our bodies are contaminated by the toxics they are putting in all kind of food, including that water, including everything that we are buying in the market. Then what to do if we know about this? To wait for President Obama to fix the problems with agribusiness and all these things? To wait for the CEO of Walmart and Monsanto to have a kind of moral epiphany and then to change to do exactly the opposite of what they are doing next Monday? No. We need to take these things up. Yes, that requires an explanation. Please don't be worried, they are very stupid talks that have created in our group here a very serious conflict. Because half of the people in here want to kill them. There are very effective ways to kill these animals, and the other half are protecting them.
Like huge. What?
Huge bugs. They don't bite, they don't do anything, but they are bothered.
They just stare down.
It's just a message coming from above.
Yeah, and usually they are very stupid and they may choke with you. They really don't bite, don't do any harm. Because the problem is that they found a home in some of these carrizos, these bamboos. And then they come to live in their houses, and then they interrupt our discussion. But don't be afraid, it is just stupid stuff. That is all. But we cannot wait for Monsanto, we cannot wait for Walmart, we cannot wait for the government. The Mexican government is explicitly trying to destroy our capacities to produce food. They are doing everything they can for that specific purpose, in association with the Monsanto, etc. And then it is to live, to eat, we need to produce the food by ourselves. And there are figures that illustrates very well what is the current situation. Small farmers, basically women, are today feeding 70% of the people on earth. 70%. Meaning, agribusiness, Monsanto, Walmart, all these kind of people, that owns 60% of the food resources of the world, are feeding only 30% of the people on earth. 30% that are getting that kind of toxic food, that kind of terrible food that is not nourishing well, etc., etc. But that means that the people themselves are solving the problem, producing their own food. And you know this also in the United States. The people have enough also in the United States. You started with something that I am sure you know very well, CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. It was invented in Japan, it came to Germany, but it became really epidemic in the United States. In the US, many people are organized in CSAs with a group of consumers, have an arrangement with a group of farmers to produce food for them, creating an alternative for both the farmers and the consumers. But after that, you started with something else. And it was really, it was not invented by the Americans, but it was adopted by the Americans in a very American way. We all know that the typical American home has a perfectly manicured lawn in front of the house. That is the typical image of an American house. In those lawns, you will spend half of all the pesticides used in the United States are for the lawns, not for agriculture, are for the lawns, to keep them in perfect condition. Well, with some people in different parts of the US, they started to transform those lawns into vegetable gardens. All the people in the street came against them and saying, no, 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 you are destroying the value of the property. The developer told us that this is for the lawns, this is not for tomatoes. And they tried to stop that movement. But today in the US you have kilometers and kilometers of lawns transformed into vegetable gardens, or the vegetable gardens in the backyard. You have Detroit, that is the perfect example of the failure of industrial development, where you have an abandoned city because the companies abandoned it. You have 900 community gardens. And there is something very beautiful happening. After the war, the Second World War, Mrs. Roosevelt saw that there was a problem with food in the US. And then she conceived with a group of friends what she called the Victory Gardens. And then all over the United States they started to use public spaces and different kind of places to produce food in these community gardens, Victory Gardens. And then they produced an enormous amount of food. They were so successful that they were decided to destroy them. Today, they discovered a few years ago a document in the files of Mr. Hoover saying that these Victory Gardens was the seed of communism, that the Americans should not accept this possibility of having this kind of collective endeavor, and then it should be destroyed. And they destroyed the Victory Gardens, in spite of the great success. It was precisely because of the success. Because it was really a collective effort. It was not individualism, it is not everyone for himself. It was people together in a community trying to strengthen the community and to produce something together as a community. That was the seed of something else, that individualism and capitalism and all these things. And then they were destroyed. Well, today you can see in the US, and this is a beautiful story, of course not for the papers don't care about this story. In the places where they had Victory Gardens, now they have Friendship Gardens. Because in the victory you always have a winner and a loser. In friendship you have something else. And you are creating Friendship Gardens to produce food in many different kinds of communities. Then it is, you have, I love to use this example in Pasadena, California. There is a collective in downtown Pasadena that in 362 square meters produce 3 tons of 80 different vegetables every year. That is American ingenuity. It is all the talent put in this effort, community effort, to create an alternative. And all this is to say that what we are saying is we cannot wait. We cannot expect a better future for any kind of public policy, any kind of things. We need to do something today to survive. And I think this is what is happening. I think at this point I need to say something about what is happening in Mexico. This country is falling apart. And part of the problem is that we don't know where the pieces are falling. We cannot go and collect them. And if they are not coming, they're outside, but they are coming on us, and then we are forced to move from one place to the other, just to avoid being crushed by one of the pieces of what was our country. And this figure is not used very much in the papers or the universities. It is the fruit of very, very long research, very careful research. 37% of the Mexicans don't live in Mexico any longer, are living in another country. This is one of the biggest stories of migration in the history of humankind. And it is not because an earthquake, it is not because of flood, it is not because the people are going for the dream of living better in another place. They are abandoning their homes because they could no longer live in their places because of the atrocious combination of misery and violence. In spite of Syria or Turkey or Palestine, according with Le Monde, and Mexico, the conflict in Mexico is the most mortal conflict in the world today. Charlie Hebdo, you remember what is Charlie Hebdo? This guy in France, they have an alternative journal, a very funny journal, and they were killed and
The terrorist attack.
the terrorist attack well, the group that remains of Charlie Hebdo, just in the last issue, says that the Mexican political class is most dangerous and kills more people that the ISIS, the Muslim Caliphate, this group of horrible group, destroying everything and killing people and producing videos with all the killings that they are producing, etc. They are really very aggressive. They are killing people. Well, for Charlie Hebdo or for Le Monde, these people are worst. In a very real sense, we are saying that we live in a kind of mud. In the mud, you cannot establish what is water, what is earth, because it's a mix of the two. You cannot establish the distinction. In Mexico, you cannot draw a line saying this is the world of crime and this is the world of the institutions. They are the same thing. Ayotzinapa, perhaps you heard a little about Ayotzinapa. Have you heard about Ayotzinapa? The 43?
Oh, yes, the students that
Students.
protested
Oh,
and they were
yes.
killed, yes.
A year ago.
Yep.
September 26th,
Yes.
last
Yep.
year.
Yes.
3 of them were killed
Get it.
in the place, and 43 of them disappeared.
Yep.
That we are still looking for them. Well, in that specific day, they became so important, not only because, of course, we need to do something about these 43. We are missing these 43, but it is because the first public evidence in videos, in TV, everywhere, in which there was the combination of the police and the so-called criminals. It was the police that captured them. It was not the cartels. It was the police. The army was there. It was a mix of the police and the army and the cartels mixed in one single operation. That is why Ayotzinapa is so important. One parenthesis, because this is an important point for us, is what we are calling the circulation of people's struggle. I was in San Diego last February, and then when I arrived and I had a meeting with some young people, they shared with me one T-shirt. And in that T-shirt, they have Ayotzinapa, the place of these 43, Ferguson, you know what means
Ferguson.
the symbol of Ferguson today, of the racist crimes in the US, and Palestine. This is a very subtle political affirmation. They are connected. These things that looks totally different. Ayotzinapa and Ferguson looks as something completely different and different to Palestine. But at the end, we discover that this is connected. It is the same kind of events, the same kind